On January 22nd, 1901, Britain's Queen Victoria dies at age 81. Of England's 63 monarchs, only 8 have been women. Interestingly, the two who served the longest, Elizabeth II and Victoria, and perhaps the greatest, Elizabeth I, were all women. Although Britain has changed its rules to no longer favor males in its line of succession, the nation is unlikely to have another woman on the throne for quite a while, with King Charles III currently the monarch, and the next two in line, William and George, both being male. Victoria was born in London's Kensington Palace in 1819. She was descended from the German House of Hanover. Her mother and her governess were German, and she allegedly spoke English with a slight German accent in childhood, requiring private tutoring to purge her speech of that accent. In 1837, Victoria ascended to the throne. She was just 18. 2 years later, her first cousin, Albert, a German nobleman of the ducal house of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha, visited the English court at Windsor. Victoria proposed to him 5 days later. They married in 1840, and Albert became a dominant force, serving as Victoria's private secretary. They built royal residences on the Isle of Wight and at Balmoral Castle in Scotland. They also held the first ever World's Fair at the famed Crystal Palace in London's Hyde Park. They had 9 children, including Edward VII, who would eventually succeed her as monarch. Albert died in 1861 of typhoid fever. He was just 42. Another 39 years passed before Victoria's own death in 1901. Victoria's reign was long enough that an entire historical era is named after her, the Victorian Age. She ruled for 63 years, the longest reign in Britain's history, until it is surpassed by her great-great-granddaughter, Elizabeth II, who wore the crown for 70 years. At the time of her death, Victoria had 37 surviving great-grandchildren, and her descendants' marriages to other monarchies give her the nickname Grandmother of Europe. In fact, the monarchs of 2 of the major powers of World War I were her progeny. King George V of Britain was her grandson, and Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany was another of her grandsons, her eldest, in fact. She was also related to the throne of another World War I power, Russia. Tsar Nicholas II's wife, Alexandria, was Victoria's granddaughter. That means the Romanov children, who were brutally murdered by the Bolsheviks during the Russian Revolution, were Victoria's great-grandchildren. Here are other events that happened today in history. In 1917, U.S. President Woodrow Wilson gives his Peace Without Victory speech before Congress. In 1931, American singer-songwriter Sam Cooke, the King of Soul, is born in Clarksdale, Mississippi. In 1973, the landmark Roe v. Wade decision establishes a woman's legal right to an abortion in the U.S. Also in 1973, just 4 years after leaving office, former U.S. President Lyndon B. Johnson dies at age 64. In 1980, physicist Andrei Sakharov is arrested in Moscow for criticizing the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. In 1998, Unabomber Ted Kaczynski pleads guilty to charges relating to multiple package bombings. In 2005, 58-year-old Donald Trump marries his third wife, Slovenian-born model Melania Naus, age 34. And now, it's time for our Today in History quiz. Where in the body is insulin produced? The pancreas, the liver, the kidneys, or the gallbladder? Think you know the answer? Drop your guesses in the comments below. Find out if you're right tomorrow on Today in History.